Hey, what's up guys, it's Kelly and today I'm sharing some middle grade recommendations. If you find yourself enjoying this video then please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, it really helps me out, and if you're new here and would like to see more of me then please subscribe. So the Believathon is happening in May. It's a middle grade readathon hosted by Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin. It's running I think from the 11th to the 24th. And it looks like so much fun. This is the second round and I couldn't participate last year, which I was so sad about, so I'm really excited to be getting into it this year. I have done my TBR, it's coming, I'm very excited about it and all the books that I'm planning to read, but today I thought I would give you guys some recommendations of middle grade books that I really enjoy in case you're still struggling to make your own TBR. So these are all books that I've read and loved, and I think that you guys should read too. Some of them will probably be familiar, but I hope that you'll see some new faces in here, or maybe just some books that you do know about but you hadn't thought about for these prompts. So the first prompt is The Pocket Poacher's Inn, and for that you need to read the first book in a series. I would definitely recommend Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. You guys know how much I adore this book, and if you don't then I've done a full review of it. I only have the Afrikaans version at the moment because I lent my English one to someone. But basically this is about a girl called Morrigan Crow who is a cursed child. So she has been cursed to die on her 11th birthday and is kind of shunned by her town because of this curse. But just before the clock strikes midnight on the eve of her birthday, she's whisked away by this eccentric red-headed man called Jupiter North and taken to Nevermore. There she has to go through a series of trials in order to gain access to the elite Wondrous Society, which is a society that is only for people that have kind of something special about them, a special ability, or there's just like something special and unique about them. And in order to go through these trials she essentially has to prove what her special unique ability is, but she's convinced that she doesn't have one. I absolutely love these books. They're so charming, so wonderful, so magical. They're a little bit on the dark side. You actually feel like there are stakes for the characters, which I really appreciate. It's just full of magic and whimsy and I cannot recommend it highly enough. Nevermore was my favourite book that I read in the whole of 2017, and Wondersmith was in my top 3 of 2018. I am now just anxiously awaiting the release of Hollowpox. And then the next first book in a series that I would really recommend is Malamander by Thomas Taylor. I have spoken about this a bit on my channel recently, but it's set in this little town called Erie-on-Sea. It's a small seaside town, and our story follows Herbie Lemon, who is in charge of the lost and found at the local hotel, and one night he meets this girl called Violet who says that she's lost and she needs his help to be found. Her parents have gone missing and she needs Herbie to help her find them and kind of uncover some secrets about her family and her past. Along with this, there is a local legend about the Malamander, who is this mysterious sea creature that seems to lurk near Erie-on-Sea. And the more they investigate Violet's parents, the more they discover that their disappearance might be linked to the legend of the Malamander. Absolutely adored this. I thought it was so charming. It gave me big Lemony Snicket vibes. It was very atmospheric. It kind of, Erie-on-Sea in my mind was very like the town in The Wide Window. So if you're a Lemony Snicket fan, I think you'll really enjoy this, and honestly if you're an anything fan, I recommend this because it is wonderful. The next prompt is The Yellow Brick Road, a book that you should have read years ago, which obviously I can't really help you guys out with because I don't know what books you've had on your TBR for years. Next is Baba Yaga's House, and that is to read a book that features a family relationship, and for that I'm recommending A Series of Unfortunate Events. I love these books so much. This is book 10, it's the only one I own, but obviously I would recommend starting at the beginning. This follows the story of Violet Klaus and Sunny Baudelaire, who in the first book lose their parents in a terrible fire and have to go and live with Count Olaf, who apparently is a distant relative. When they get there, they find out that Count Olaf is in fact just the worst, most evil man imaginable, and he just wants to steal their fortune. So if you enjoy series about really intelligent, somewhat precocious but very lovable children outsmarting evil with the power of books and imagination, I would highly recommend these. Next is The Wonderfuls, which is to read a book about a character with a disability or written by an author with a disability. For this I would recommend The Christmasaurus by Tom Fletcher. This book is just so delightful. I'm going to read the inside jacket of it to you because forget everything you thought you knew about the North Pole. Pop a crumpet in the toaster and get ready to meet a boy called William Trundle, his dad, Mr. Bob Trundle, Santa Claus, yes, the real Santa Claus, an elf named Snozzletrump, Brenda Payne, the meanest girl in school, possibly the world, a nasty piece of work called The Hunter, and the most unusual dinosaur. Also, look at these end pages. I did read this a little while ago, so I'm a bit fuzzy on the details, but from what I remember, this is about a boy called William who is wheelchair bound, and he's quite a cheerful boy, although he is quite lonely, and I think his Christmas wish is for a friend. He's also absolutely mad about dinosaurs. He has dinosaur pajamas, he has dinosaur toys, he has dinosaur books, everything about him is dinosaurs, and he and his dad absolutely love Christmas. Then we have the Christmasaurus, who is a dinosaur that hatches at the North Pole, and on Christmas Eve he sneaks into Santa's sleigh to have a look at the presents and then gets stuck there, and as Santa is dropping off his presents all around the world, he ends up in William Trundle's house and they go on adventures from there, and it's just so sweet, so utterly magical and charming. It's a beautiful story about love and loss and friendship and dinosaurs and Christmas, and honestly, what more could you want? Next is The 100-Acre Wood, to read a book with a yellow cover, a yellow spine, or a yellow back cover, and I'm going with Jacob Tutu Meets the Hooded Fang, which does have a yellow back cover. This is probably a little young. This is like a proper children's book. It is a little younger than middle grade, but I still really recommend it. This is about a boy called Jacob Tutu who says everything twice. He's the youngest in his family, no one really listens to him, so he has to say everything twice in order to be heard. And one day he gets sent out to buy a pound of tomatoes, I think, and he repeats himself and he gets arrested and taken to the Hooded Fang, which is where naughty children go, and it follows his adventures from there trying to escape from the Hooded Fang. I loved this book as a child. I've read this probably like a dozen times. I don't remember if it was a TV show or a movie, but there was a TV adaptation of this which I was also obsessed with, and it's just a book that I have never really encountered anyone else who's known it. I've never seen it in a library. Like, I don't know why this book is not hailed as a children's classic that's available everywhere, because it's fantastic and it should be. It is quite dark. Like, even as a child I didn't really get scared of stuff, and I used to find this quite like creepy and a little scary, and so just, oh, it's so good, and honestly it's 79 pages. You're going to read this in like an hour. Next is The Deep Woods, to read a book that was published before 2000. For this I'm going with Literally Anything by Enid Blyton. I think that she's fantastic, but I specifically want to recommend the Secret series because I think it's one that not as many people know about, and you should. It's one of my favourite series of hers. So I'm going to talk about the first book, which is The Secret Island, and then I'll come back to this one. The Secret Island follows 4 children. 3 of them are siblings who their parents went on a plane trip and have gone missing, so they're staying with their really awful aunt and uncle who basically just use them as slave labour, and they have a friend called Jack who kind of lives in the woods near them, and they all decide to run away together to this island that they can see from like where they live. So they spend months collecting supplies and restoring a boat, and they sail off to the secret island and they make a home there for themselves. They build shelter, they learn to hunt like animals, and they learn to fish, and they start growing vegetables, and I think it's like every kid's dream, you know, to spend a few months away from adults on this like magical secret place that just belongs to you. So it's a very fun adventure story and really would recommend it. The Secret of Moon Castle I think is like the 3rd or 4th book in the series, but honestly you don't have to read them in order. I read The Secret Island first and then I skipped straight ahead to this one. The only thing that's different is there is a new character called Paul who I think they met in the 2nd book. If you can just ignore the fact that you don't know how they know Paul, you can really go straight onto this book. The reason that I haven't read the books in between and the books following is I've never been able to find them again, which is just a travesty. Enid Blyton, you can easily get the ultimate classics like The Wishing Chair and The Faraway Tree and Secret Seven and Famous Five, but I feel like all of her other works are slightly less accessible. Even, I mean, Amelia Jane or like The Naughtiest Girl, they do kind of semi-regular print runs of, but I have never seen these apart from when I was a child when I got these. So I think it's a travesty of epic proportions that Enid Blyton's entire back catalogue is not stocked in every single bookshop in the world. Anyway, this one I didn't read as often as a child because I didn't like it as much as The Secret Island, but when I went back and reread them when I was older, I actually think I preferred this one a little bit. So they go to this castle in the countryside for the summer. Paul is the Prince of Bavaria, I think, so they rent Moon Castle because, you know, they're a royal family, they have to stay in the castle, obviously. And so Paul and the children and their families go there for the summer, and weird things start to happen. Paintings seem to fall off the walls, lights turn on and off, and it's just kind of a traditional kids' ghost story that isn't really a ghost story. It's got that very like Victorian Gothic feel to it of, it definitely feels like something supernatural's at play here, but is it? Or is it just that they're living in an old castle with a creepy caretaker? So if you can find these, would highly recommend. Next is Mermaid's Lagoon, to read a book featuring a female Bond, and I would really recommend The Dragon in the Library by Louise Stowell. This is about a girl called Kit who really doesn't like books. She thinks the books are very boring, but she and her friends go to the library one day in the summer because her friends are desperate to get a new book. It's very obviously a parody of Harry Potter because they're like, it's a release day, we have to go to the library because we have to be first in line because otherwise the other kid's going to get it before us, and then they go to the library and all of the copies have already been checked out. I felt that hard. I felt how sad these kids were in that moment. I digress. So Kit is kind of wandering around the library, bored out of her mind, just waiting to leave, when she does something strange. The librarian realizes that she has magical powers. It turns out that all librarians are in fact wizards, and it seems that Kit is one too. And the librarian now needs Kit and her friends' help because the librarians at this specific library are guarding a sleeping dragon that sleeps in the basement of the library. And they now need these kids' help because this evil property developer wants to buy the land and tear down the library, and they have to protect this dragon, and in order to do that they have to save the library. We all as readers know that books are magic, but in this book they really are. And the thing that I really loved about it is the main character is a child that doesn't like reading and that learns to understand the importance of books and learns to love books because of how wonderful and how magical they can be, even though in her case they are literally magical. So while I do recommend this just to book lovers in general because I think it's a really fun story that we can all relate to, I would also really recommend it if you have a child in your life who's a reluctant reader. It's a very easy read. It has quite large font, it has lovely illustrations, which of course now I can't find. This is an ARC, so I think it has fewer illustrations than the finished book does anyway, but like, look at these pages. Gorgeous. Also it has like tons of representation. Kit is a girl, but she's quite a tomboyish girl. You know, she wears shorts, she has very short hair, she looks quite androgynous, like she could be a boy. And Kit obviously is quite a unisex name, it's just that she is referred to as she. Her friends are both people of colour. Josh, I think, is black, and Alita seems to be subcontinental. She looks like she could be like Indian or Pakistani. Let me just find a picture of the librarian. And then Faith, who is the librarian, is black, so loads of representation as well, which is awesome. And just a super fun story with a really important message. Sorry, I should probably mention the reason that I, you know, have chosen this. I really love the bond that Kit and Faith, who is the librarian, form. Faith is quite a bit older. Kit is probably about 10 or 11, and Faith, I think, is like 20. So they form this really lovely kind of older sister, little sister relationship, and it's a very sweet bond. It's not perfect, they have quite a big blowout, and then they learn to forgive each other, and everything about this book is fantastic. Next is The Brolly Rail, which is to read a book featuring transportation or with some form of transportation on the cover, and for that I'm recommending The Highland Falcon Thief by MG Leonard and Sam Sedgman. I recently read this in my... So I read a chunk of this for the Bookie Trials Royal Weekender, and it's just so much fun. It's about this boy and his uncle who go on a train journey through the Scottish Highlands. So it's the last voyage of this very famous train, so it's quite an exclusive affair. There are lots of very rich people on board, including the Prince and Princess. Within about an hour of getting on board, a brooch is stolen. Then a little bit later something else gets stolen, and eventually it culminates when the Prince and Princess board the train, and it turns out that the princess's iconic, extremely expensive diamond necklace has been stolen and replaced with a fake. So Hal, who is our main character, takes it upon himself to start investigating the robberies. This was so much fun. It was like Agatha Christie for kids. I had so much fun reading it. It's not like the best written, the writing's not bad, it's just not outstanding, but the storyline was great, all of the characters are very colourful. It really does keep you guessing because all of them seem to have motives for one or more of the crimes. So it's just so much fun, and the proof copy doesn't have a lot of illustrations, it only has a couple like near the front. But the thing I think is really cool about this is that Hal is an artist, so he kind of draws everything that he's observing on the train, and as you read the book he'll sometimes refer back to his sketches and be like, oh, but I saw this person wearing their brooch before it was stolen, or I saw this person wearing this, so that means that. And so if you're reading the finished book with all of the illustrations, you can kind of refer back to those drawings with him and start to puzzle together the clues like that. It's just, oh, it's so much fun. It really, as I said, felt like Agatha Christie for kids, but also when I was younger I used to read these Usborne puzzle books, and it was a story, like you were following a story, but along the way you were looking for clues and trying to solve puzzles in order to carry on with the story, and I also got that feeling from it. It's just so much fun and would highly recommend if you enjoy adventure stories. Then I have failed you for the next prompt, which is Orion Found, to read a book that is sci-fi or has a space related word in the title. I could not think of anything. I don't own anything, and I couldn't think back to anything that I had read that would work for this. I'm sorry. This is my fault. I apologise, but luckily I still have a couple of recommendations to go. Next is Black Ice Bridge, which is to read a book that features an expedition or an adventure. Pretty much all of the books that I've already mentioned do feature some sort of adventure or expedition, but also how could I not recommend Percy Jackson, the ultimate in adventure stories. I love this series, I don't think I need to tell you guys anything about it. Demigods, Greek mythology, loads of fun, sassy main character. You could not ask for more in a book series. And lastly, we have finally reached the Bookkeeper's Stronghold. This is the end. This is where it all comes together, and your final challenge is to read the next book in the series. This could be a sequel, the third book, the fourth book, whatever it is. So like with the book that you should have read years ago, it's difficult for me to give you a recommendation for this because obviously I don't know what you guys have read. But what I can recommend to you is sequels that I thought were equally as good as their original books, or as their first books. So if you have decided to read Nevermore at some point in this readathon, I would recommend Wondersmith because it is equally as magnificent, equally as wonderful. No, that's a lie. It's more magnificent, more wonderful, more whimsical. The thing that I loved about this is it does start getting much darker, and also you definitely get to explore the world a bit more, and it has red sprayed edges, which, like, I'm not gonna spoil this for you because you might not even have read Nevermore. If you have read Nevermore, however, I do have a full review of Wondersmith up, which has spoilers for Nevermore but not for Wondersmith. So if you are trying to decide if you should read this, go check that out. Then if you have read and enjoyed The Christmasaurus, I would recommend the sequel, The Christmasaurus and the Winter Witch. Again, can't tell you too much about this without spoiling The Christmasaurus, but I will say they have to save Christmas. That would be all I needed to know, to be quite honest. So those are my recommendations for Believathon. Please let me know if this helped you out. Also, feel free to leave recommendations in the comments for any of the prompts for people that are watching, for things that I didn't mention or that I might not know about but that you think would work really well and that people should definitely be reading. Also let me know what you think of any of the books that I mentioned because I would love to hear it, and feel free to leave me links to either your Believathon recommendations or your TBRs because I want to know what you guys are reading. I am super excited for this. I love middle grade books so much and I just don't make as much time to read them anymore because like that's not my focus anymore. But I still love middle grade and think that it's so special and so wonderful. I'm super excited to just dedicate 2 weeks to reading fantastic middle grade, and all of the books on my TBR are really highly anticipated for me. So I think it's going to be a good time. I can't wait. Thank you so much to Gavin for organising this, and thank you to you guys for watching this. So if you did enjoy it, then please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye!
My life is grounded in a firm routine of coffee, sleep, and work. I am not boring, I just stick to